I'm Max Lopez. This is the Blue Wave. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and the former President Donald Trump met today after Zelenskyy met with Harris and Biden yesterday. Um, this comes just hours after Donald Trump was claiming that Harris meeting with Zelenskyy was election interference, but now here he is meeting with him less than 24 hours later. But what we're going to look at here is a clip of Zelenskyy making quite an interesting little quip interrupting Donald Trump while he was bloviating about his relationship with Putin and his relationship with Zelenskyy. And Zelenskyy very, very interestingly had something to say about Trump's purported relationship with Putin. But before we look at the clip, please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with someone who's into politics. It helps YouTube take my channel more seriously and get the word out to more and more people. So let's go ahead and look at this clip here of Zelenskyy and Trump meeting today.
So we have a very good relationship, and I also have a very good relationship, as you know, with President Putin. And I think if we win, I think we're going to get it resolved very quickly. I really think we're going to get it resolved.
I hope we have more good relations.
We're going to have. Oh, I see. Yeah, but you know, it takes two to tango. You know, and we will. We're going to have a good meeting today. So we have a very.
Wow. So right, you can hear right there, Donald Trump was in the midst of saying, me and Putin have a very good relationship. And what Zelenskyy says there is, well, I hope that we can have a very good relationship. And then Donald Trump replies, well, it takes two to tango, basically insinuating that it's Zelenskyy and Ukraine's fault in some kind of way that the war is occurring. And let's be clear here. When Donald Trump says that he would have never allowed the war to start, or that if he was elected president in 2020, that the Ukraine-Russian conflict would have never even broke out, let's be clear about what he means when he says that. What he means is that the conflict would not be occurring right now because Russia would have already steamrolled over Kyiv. That's what he means. That's not less conflict. That's what would lead to an emboldened Russia that has made no qualms about its desire to redraw the borders of the USSR prior to the Berlin Wall falling. And Donald Trump is Putin's best path to that happening because of his total lack of support of NATO. So what Zelenskyy is saying there is, whose team are you really on, right? If you're saying you have such a good relationship with Putin, I sure hope that you have a good relationship with us too, because we're the ones being attacked, right? We're the ones that are standing for democracy and fighting against this invasion. And it really just kind of goes to show where Donald Trump's allegiances lie. It's not with freedom. It's not with democracy. It's not with standing up to dictators. And when Biden time and time again calls Donald Trump a threat to democracy and says that he doesn't stand for democracy, this is exactly what he's talking about. Donald Trump's quickness to side with Vladimir Putin in this conflict. And let's make no qualms. If Trump was elected president when Russia decided to invade, Kyiv would have fallen. And we'd be in a scenario where Russia would now be looking to attack more and more and more countries. So when Trump says, oh, it takes two to tango, basically what he's saying is, well, Zelenskyy, you should be willing to give up territory, or you should be willing to bow to Putin's demands in order to make this conflict come to an end. But that's putting the onus of ending the conflict on Ukraine when they didn't want to be invaded by Russia. They didn't want to have to totally change all of their way of life. And the Ukrainian civilians who were working day jobs and working as doctors and mailmen and construction workers and retail workers and delivery drivers and you name it, they didn't want to be drafted into a conflict to fight this Russian military that is much, much larger than Ukraine's military. They didn't want to have to discover mass graves in Bucha where Russians were going door to door and executing civilians and raping civilians in front of their own family members in many cases, and then promptly murdering them and throwing their bodies into mass graves that were later discovered by human rights organizations. They didn't want that. Ukraine didn't want that. Ukraine didn't want to have its economy completely decimated and have its number one export, grain, be completely reduced to being able to be exported through one port in the country. They didn't want that. They didn't. Ukraine wanted none of that. It was Russia that wanted to expand its territory and was not satisfied with its position in Europe, that wanted to expand its borders and take in more of the European economy, starting with Ukraine. But let's make no qualms, Putin made an evil speech on the day of the invasion, and he said in his evil speech quite succinctly, well, not succinctly, I'll take that back. He said quite clearly that he thinks that any country that was used to be a part of the USSR still is a part of the USSR, and that he has a historical claim to ownership and to invade other countries outside of just Ukraine. So when Trump says that the conflict would be over when he's elected, he means that Ukraine would not exist as a sovereign nation anymore. The Ukrainian government would be crushed. Vladimir Zelenskyy would likely be dead, and Russia would be emboldened to do whatever it wants, knowing that NATO will not stand up to it, and the United States will certainly not back NATO, and that they were not going to have support from the largest military in the world. That NATO would not be supported by the largest military in the world. Russia would know that if Trump was elected. So yeah, his priorities are very clear here, and if Trump is elected, it'll be an absolute disaster for peace and stability in the region of Europe. And we really have no other choice than to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, because Kamala Harris and Tim Walz will stand with our European allies. They will stand with Ukraine and deliver them the arms that they need to continue to beat back the aggressive Russian invasion. And Donald Trump will not do that, exemplified in his remarks today that he made to Vladimir Zelenskyy. So that's all I got for you guys in this one. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with someone who's into politics. It helps YouTube take my channel more and more seriously. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. All right, take care.